Good evening, everyone. We're going to continue. Thank you for coming this evening. We are going to have Councillor Reid with a motion for Council to rise from closed session. Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Devine, that Council rise from closed session and reconvene in open session.
Thank you. All those in favour? And that's carried. Thank you. Now we're going to continue with the presentation, and first up is Jason Leach, and he's our Senior Transportation Engineering Technologist on the Cycling Master Plan. I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully that comes on seconds from now. Thank you.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of Council. My name is Jason Leach. I'm the city's project manager for the Cycling Master Plan update. The city has retained Urban Systems to help us through this master plan update. And this evening we have Brian Patterson with us, and he's going to speak to us about the project, a little bit of the background, what we've heard from the community to date, and what the next steps are. At the end, we'd be happy to answer any questions you have, and we're hoping to hear some of your feedback on the project and how we can make Cambridge a more bike-friendly community. So with that, I'll hand it over to Brian.
Thank you. Welcome, Brian.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Leach, and good evening, Your Worship and members of Council. As was mentioned, I'm excited to be here to present an update and an overview of the Cycling Master Plan that we've been working on with the City of Cambridge for the past several months. And the agenda for this presentation is to start with a bit of a study overview. I'll talk a little bit about the process we've gone through so far and what's next in the process. Summarize what we've heard through the first round of public engagement that took place over the past couple of months, and then provide some preliminary ideas about our plan framework for the Cycling Master Plan, outlining a preliminary draft of a vision statement along with some goals and preliminary themes for the Cycling Master Plan. And as was mentioned, we'd be happy to take any questions and encourage any discussion after the presentation. So in terms of the study overview, we've been working on this plan for the past several months. We launched the plan publicly back in May, and really the intent of the plan is to update and integrate two documents that the city has developed, the 2008 Bikeway Network Plan and the 2010 Trails Master Plan. So we're looking to update both of those documents, but to do so in an integrated fashion and really bring those documents together to have an integrated on-street and off-street cycling and trails master plan. We're also looking to identify opportunities to integrate with the city's other plans and policies, as well as regional plans and policies as well, and making sure that this master plan aligns with other city and regional directions. And ultimately, through this process, we're looking to guide the development of safe and convenient and comfortable active transportation infrastructure for people of all ages and abilities over the long term, which is over the next 20 years and beyond. So in terms of cycling in Cambridge today, currently based on census data, about 1% of trips in Cambridge are made by bicycle, and that's looking at commute trips to work or to school. It's quite similar to some of the surrounding communities. Kitchener and Waterloo have similar bicycle mode shares, but there's many other communities throughout Ontario of similar sizes and elsewhere in Canada who have higher mode shares, and we can look to some of those communities for examples about how we might look to increase levels of cycling use here in Cambridge. And the map on the right shows in darker areas in red where some of the higher levels of bicycle use are currently in the city, based again on census data. And we see some of the inner city mature neighborhoods within the city, and particularly areas of Preston and Galt, showing higher cycling mode shares today. When we look at the city's existing cycling network, you have already a well-established cycling network with a comprehensive network of on-street bicycle lanes and really fantastic recreational trails throughout the city. And this provides an opportunity, as I mentioned, to integrate the on-street cycling network and the off-street trails network and really provide ultimately a connected network that connects all destinations throughout the city. Currently, there's about 230 kilometers of on-road and off-road cycling facilities within the city. So as I mentioned, a key focus of this process is to develop an integrated plan that updates the on-street cycling master plan and the off-street trails master plan, recognizing that a large number of cycling trips made within the city are recreational in nature, but there's an opportunity to build upon those recreational trails to provide a robust network that really integrates on-street and off-street facilities that works for transportation and for recreation. And we're looking to develop a plan for all ages and abilities. And what that means is we're really looking to provide a network that's comfortable for everyone, whether it's children up to seniors and everybody in between, and a plan that's comfortable for people from 8 to 80 years old. And what that means is there's a number of different facilities we'll be looking at to provide that safe and comfortable infrastructure. On busier streets throughout the city, we'll be looking at physically protected bicycle lanes where possible. On quiet streets, we'll be looking at things like local street bikeways or bicycle boulevards. These are on quiet local streets, maybe with some traffic calming that creates a comfortable environment to share the road. And then for off-street facilities, looking at building upon your off-street trail network. So these are the three primary types of facilities that will be successful in reaching out to make the network comfortable for people of all ages and abilities. So the Cycling Master Plan will outline a vision and goals and plans over the long term for the next 20 years and beyond. And to do that, our first step will be to outline a long-term vision for cycling and trail use here in Cambridge today, along with supporting goals and objectives, and we'll present those later on in the presentation. We will also be developing network plans for the cycling network and the trails network, along with supporting programs and initiatives, and identify short-term, medium-term, and long-term priorities. Although the plan is looking at a 20-year horizon, we do want to make sure we're providing short-term priorities along with cost estimates and funding strategies for the short, medium, and long term. And that will tie into an implementation plan that will be developed as we finalize the plan, along with a monitoring plan. So as I mentioned, this process is looking to align with other city plans, processes, and initiatives, of course, including the cycling network plan and the trails master plan, but also looking to integrate and align with your official plan, your strategic plan, and your greenhouse gas reduction plan, among others. So in terms of the study process we have been going through, we're about midway through the process. And what we have done over the past few months, we launched the process back in the spring, and over the past 2 months or so, we've been doing our first round of public engagement. We had a public event and a stakeholder workshop last month or 2 months ago, along with an online survey where we had over 200 responses, which was fantastic to see. So we've taken a lot of that input from the public, along with some technical work, to develop a preliminary idea of what the vision and goals might look like, as well as a preliminary network that we're working through. And the idea then through the summer is to develop that network and then come back for another round of public engagement in phase 4 in the fall. And then we would present that network and present ultimately the draft long-term plan, and then come back to you later on in the winter for approval. So in terms of communications and engagement, we've been really looking to do a range of tools and tactics to reach out to all members of the community. Again, thinking about it from an 8 to 80s lens, so we're hearing from a wide range of community members. We're looking to make engagement fun and interactive. And so we've had a number of public events. We had an event here. And in particular, what we've heard will come largely from the online survey. As I mentioned, we had a really positive response to the online survey. We had 227 completed survey responses, which was fantastic. And we heard from mostly Cambridge residents and business owners. About 2/3 of the respondents identified as residents of Cambridge, and we also heard from a number of business owners or people who regularly travel through Cambridge. We had a relatively good balance in terms of demographics, in terms of the gender split, with about 40% females and about 60% male respondents. And most respondents were kind of in the 25 to 54 age bracket. One of the things we look to identify and understand is how people move through the community. When I referenced the census data earlier on, it's quite limited because that only looks at commute trips to work or school, so it doesn't really capture the wide range of reasons why people might choose to cycle in Cambridge. And when we look at the trip purpose, the image on the top right there, it shows that there's a wide range of reasons why people are cycling in Cambridge, whether it's to spend time with family and friends, to go to shops or restaurants, to exercise or to just have fun, to have recreational opportunities. And in fact, commuting to work or school was only about the reason that 10% of people identified for the main reason they cycle. So that's quite interesting. There's a large recreational cycling population, but there's an opportunity to encourage more people to commute to work and to travel for other reasons as well. We asked also how often people travel for transportation versus recreational purposes, which is what the two graphs on the bottom are showing. And what was quite interesting is we saw that a lot of people cycle frequently for recreation purposes, but not so much for transportation. And in fact, a large number of the responses for transportation indicated that they never cycle for transportation, but they do cycle for recreation. So what we're seeing in the plan, that helps frame up what the opportunity might be as we structure the plan and really try to tap into that market of people who may not be cycling to work today, but there's an opportunity if we can provide an integrated off-street and on-street network. And so part of the things we're trying to identify is how can we get more people cycling for all trip purposes. And part of that involves understanding what are some of the barriers to cycling today. And through the online survey, we heard a number to deal with, but it's an important barrier to be mindful of. And then we also asked, what are the top things the city could do to encourage you to cycle more? And we heard quite overwhelmingly the number one incentive to get people cycling more was to build physically separated bicycle lanes to address that barrier about traffic safety, so people aren't riding next to high-speed traffic, which is really uncomfortable for many people. And we also heard filling in gaps in the bicycle network and having more on-street painted bicycle lanes would be attractive to encourage them to cycle more. So that provides very useful feedback to help us understand what are some of the barriers and incentives as we start developing some key themes for the draft plan. And in terms of those key themes, the plan framework that we've identified outlines a preliminary vision statement along with supporting goals and themes for the plan. And our vision statement really looks to build upon the existing community vision that's identified in the official plan and the strategic plan. And there's a number of themes that are bolded in your community vision, which I won't read out, but there's a number of themes, including really recognizing the unique nature of the community here and the founding communities, the uniqueness of the heritage and the rivers of the community, and looking at the natural environment and looking at creating safe and accessible neighborhoods. So among others, we tried to capture some of those themes in a draft vision statement for the cycling master plan. And that's what we're proposing on the right here, which suggests that the vision would be that Cambridge celebrates cycling as a practical, convenient, and fun way to travel through the community by people of all ages and abilities for both transportation and recreation purposes. The city's bicycle network connects its founding communities and neighborhoods and takes advantage of the city's unique heritage, rivers, and natural environment. And finally, cycling helps to promote sustainability, accessibility, and economic development by providing residents with mobility choices and creating a unique environment to attract tourists and visitors. So we wanted to make sure we were finding an opportunity to align the cycling master plan vision with the overall community vision. Similarly, we looked at developing preliminary goals for the plan, and we looked at some of the themes in your strategic plan, which are people, places, and prosperity, and have developed preliminary goal statements that align with each of those three themes. So for the theme of people, a simple goal of having more people cycling. For the theme of places, having more places to cycle and having a connected cycling network. And in terms of prosperity, having more opportunities for cycling tourism and economic development. Finally, looking at how to move forward and actually achieve that vision and those goals, we then need to look forward at what are the tools and strategies that would be included in the plan. And based on what we've heard from the public, we've identified 5 key themes for the plan. And this identifies what might be included within each of those 5 themes. So theme 1 would look at connections, and this is really looking at the overall cycling network and how to create a connected on-road and off-street network that's comfortable for people of all ages and abilities. Theme 2 looks at integration. This includes things like bicycle parking, transit integration, particularly with the planned LRT, and integration with new development and with adjacent communities. Theme 3 looks at all seasons. So this is looking at maintenance considerations throughout the year, as well as the development of a winter cycling network. Theme 4 is looking at celebrating cycling, and this involves things such as education, awareness, wayfinding, and tourism, and encouraging children to cycle to school. And then finally, theme 5 is looking at monitoring, so establishing a data collection program and monitoring bicycle use and monitoring your progress in achieving the goals of the plan. So that's a summary of what we've heard to date and our preliminary thoughts on the plan framework, the vision, goals, and themes. And with that, we'd like to open it up to any discussion or feedback you might have. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And I do have a comment to start with, and that's Councillor Liggett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jason, thank you so much for that update. I really appreciate the cycling. I wish I could ride my bike to work again, but I can't. You had spoken about quiet neighborhood streets, protected bike lanes. Do you have, since you're in the midst of doing that right now, can you give us some examples of where you could do those protected bike lanes, and which quiet neighborhood streets you would be doing also the bike lanes on, please?
Through your worship, so there's three types of facilities we're looking at. When we're looking at quiet residential streets, we're really looking at a lot of the local streets within your community, streets that already have low traffic volumes, primarily local residential streets. And there's a number of things you can do on those streets to make them more bicycle friendly. In some cases, if they're already really quiet residential streets where it's comfortable to share the road, it could be having some pavement markings on the ground with signage and kind of branding to make people aware of these routes and identify key destinations and how to navigate the network. And if traffic volumes are a little bit higher, there's an opportunity to look at other tools, things like traffic calming measures, to help just bring down traffic volumes and make them more comfortable. But essentially, those local street bikeways would be on generally quiet residential streets, whereas the protected bike lanes would be on streets that have higher traffic volumes today, where to make it comfortable for people of all ages and abilities, having some sort of physical barrier to provide physical protection beyond just a painted line. These could involve, even on many arterial roads or regional roads, building more boulevard multi-use trails, or having something on street where you provide a physical barrier. And there's many different ways you can achieve that by reallocating road space to provide that space for physical separation. And part of the process we'll be going through in developing the network is kind of looking at the city's existing streets and looking at the characteristics of each of those streets to identify where the different treatments might make the most sense. We really need to look at each street on a case-by-case basis.
I had asked you if you had some examples, so at this point you're still in the midst of looking at all that? You don't have any examples at all to give us?
Not yet. We're just in the process of developing our preliminary network right now, okay. And that's something we'll be developing over the summer and then coming back in the fall to present some ideas to the public about where we might look at those different treatments. So we don't have that developed quite yet.
Okay, thank you. My second question. We find that the more trails, and whether it be walking, bike trails that we put in, it adds to the operational costs. So are you taking that into consideration? Have you been looking at that alongside of the trails as well?
Through your worship, yes, that'll be a very important component of the plan. In the third theme, where we're looking at all seasons, we will be looking at the maintenance requirements, what you're currently doing for your maintenance practices and the cost of that, and then what the implications would be with an expanded network, which means more maintenance, but also improving your maintenance standards and having costs for that. That's critical whenever you're investing new capital infrastructure, to be thinking about what those
right,
downstream...
So that's snow plowing as well.
Yes, that
okay.
will be included.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Your Worship. I want to thank you for your presentation, very comprehensive, and I also want to thank you for the integration of the bike and trail master plans. I think that makes so much sense, and it really is terrific to see them together. I enjoyed reading about it. I have a couple of questions, and one is the bike share program. How is that working? I noticed that our bicycles are gone from here, so that means they must be in use.
Thanks, Shannon. We just talked about this.
Through your worship, the bike share program has been well received. Not all of the bikes have been deployed in Cambridge yet, or actually even throughout the region. And we are finding that people are using them, but there may not be, there's room for more uptake in the program.
Thank you for that. Further to that,
go ahead.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm worried about safety on our trails and safety on our sidewalks, as well as some of our roads that I might mention. I noticed that, in the trails, we want to have bicycles along with pedestrians, but oftentimes that creates a bit of a problem because people aren't aware of a bicycle coming from behind them. And also that people who, even when we have the bike lane, choose to not use it and drive on the sidewalk instead. What kind of plans do you have to encourage more safety?
Through your worship, as we develop the network, that's certainly an important consideration, and we know that multi-use trails can have conflicts, certainly between people walking, people cycling, and other users as well, as people are traveling at different speeds. In areas where you have higher activity, higher levels of people walking and cycling, that's where you might look to have protected bicycle lanes as an option. With protected bicycle lanes, people cycling have their own space, and then people on the sidewalk or the trails have their space as well. So that's one strategy to help reduce those conflicts. So we anticipate maybe in some of the more developed areas of the city where we have more activity, more people walking and cycling, that might be something we would look at. Whereas in some other areas of the city, if there's not as many people out walking or cycling, multi-use pathways can work quite well in those contexts. So it's a matter of looking at what the expected volumes might be. And as we're looking at recommendations, it's also important to design the facilities appropriately so that if it is a multi-use pathway, just making sure it's wide enough to accommodate people walking and cycling safely.
And thirdly, if I may, through you, Madam Mayor, in my ward, we have Speedsville Road and Maple Grove Road, and there's bicyclists on that quite frequently, and it really is very, very dangerous, particularly Speedsville. How soon are we going to have some kind of change there so that it's a lot safer for cyclists?
Through your worship, we're not at a point yet where we could identify a specific priority for that corridor, but what we will be doing through the plan, I mentioned we will be identifying short-term priorities, and among those we will be identifying some quick win priorities, things that you might do over the next year or two, and working that into your capital planning process. And we're also looking to integrate with existing projects that are already identified through your capital program. So I can't comment to the specific corridor yet that you're referring to, but that is an important step of the plan to identify those priorities and provide that clear action plan.
Well, at least I've identified it for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we'll move forward to Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, Brian, thanks for the presentation. And safety is one of those things that you really talked about, and my question may be rhetorical after what you said to Councillor Reid, but I think of the triangle that we create in connecting Galt, Preston, and Hesper through Blair. And I think of Blair Road and Fountain Street, and I think of Hesper Road, Queen Street, Eagle Street, Coronation Boulevard, all those streets that are heavily traveled by motor vehicles, and bicyclists want to use them as well. And because it's not safe to do so.
As this plan is put together, I do believe there needs to be a maintenance component attached to it. We have beautiful multi-use trails in the city, active transportation trails. But once you hit about June, as the grass grows along the side of the trails tend to get narrower and narrower. So I do believe that a lot of the trails, they need to be trimmed back on a regular basis, about 1.5 feet on either side. Because again, you have those people walking, you have that bicycle, that somebody needs somewhere to step. All right, so that...
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from council members? I have a couple, if that's all right, Brian. Thank you very much for your presentation. I'm very excited about cycling as usual. And I believe that the draft vision and goals that you've got right now will certainly take us forward in where we want to go to as a city. I know that about 3 years ago we had a Bicycle Friendly City Award in the bronze category from the Share the Road Cycling Coalition and the Bike Summit. I'm hoping, and I have just met with Shannon regarding this, hoping that we can move this city forward into a silver category. Do you believe that we've sort of done all the ticks necessary to advance our bicycle-friendly city designation?
I think so, and this is something that's included in our scope of work, is look at what what are some of those next steps and key ingredients to move to the next level of being a bicycle-friendly community. So it's something we're definitely paying attention to and looking at through this study. And through what I've seen with the trail network that you already have and the improvements you've made with bike lanes on many of your streets, I think you've made some tremendous progress already. So.
Okay, thank you. I had a couple other questions too, if that's all right. One of which was bike parking. We've had certainly not as much bike parking in our core areas in particular. I believe, and I think we believe as a council, that there's certainly more tourism that we can attract, tourism, cycling, folks into our downtown cores. Bike parking seems to be an issue. We're also in the throes of a city that's been gripped with a lot of bike theft in the area. So can you recommend some of the more secure bike parking that other jurisdictions utilize, either at major transit hubs or in their downtown cores?
So there's two different types of bicycle parking that we would be looking at. One is the short-term bicycle parking, bike racks on the street in the public right-of-way, and then more long-term secure bicycle parking. Some of the options that other communities look at could be secure bicycle lockers. Those are often used at rapid transit stations where you have essentially a secure box about the size of a bicycle. You can store one bicycle inside. And often at a transit station, you might have, depending on the number of ridership, 2 to 10 of those bicycle lockers at a station. In some cases, if you have higher activity or of people cycling, you could have a bicycle room or kind of a bicycle cage where you can have multiple bicycles in one secure room. So that's another option that some communities look at. And another option is just simply having weather-protected bicycle parking. So even if it's just bike racks, making sure that dealing with one of the barriers, which was weather, that's one tool that you can look at if there's cover to help with rain or snow to promote those multimodal trips. But providing bicycle parking at rapid transit stations, especially with the coming of the LRT, is a really important ingredient to encourage longer distance trips, for sure.
Okay, thank you. And last question was really regarding the education. And, you know, all of us really believe that we need to ensure as much safety as possible with not only our cycling public, but our pedestrians as well as our motorists on, you know, and sharing the road safely on all those areas. I know that there's been some education programs that have really been promoted throughout Ontario. And one of them is talking about the safe routes to school. Are you looking forward to an educational component here that can be rolled out not just to younger cyclists, but more of us that may be a little more mature?
Absolutely. The plan will have recommendations for all of those types of education initiatives. A key one, as you mentioned, was safe routes to school and encouraging children to walk and cycle to school. And there's lots of experience in communities across Ontario and beyond to look at kind of what are some successful ingredients for getting children to cycle more. But as you mentioned, education is important not just for children. Having adult education and skills training is also important, and also having education not just for people cycling, but for people walking and for drivers. We really need to educate all road users. So the plan will identify what some of those opportunities might be for educating each of those members.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see any further questions or comments, but thank you so much for your presentation. We'll look forward to more coming back in the near future.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, Council, we are a little ahead, but I think we'll continue on. Our next presentation is Dr. Anne Bordelot from the University Waterloo School of Architecture. Would you come forward? Thanks.
Good evening. Can I get a bit of help? Yeah. I'll just wait for the images to go up because I'm an architect. I can't talk without images.
Yeah, we'll wait.
There they are. Well, so good evening, Your Worship. Good evening, all councillors. Thank you for everyone for the opportunity to provide you with an update on our schools project this evening. So as I was introduced, my name is Anne Bordelot. I'm the O'Donovan Director of the School of Architecture of the University of Waterloo. And I was here a year ago or so to reflect on the synergies that have flourished between the school and the city over the past 15 years. And tonight I'll be revisiting some of that presentation with additional information on the current and future projects of the school so that everyone can get a really good sense of the impact of our presence here in Cambridge and feel confident that this is something you can continue to support as we move forward. Here. So 20 years ago in 1999, the plans to move the school to Cambridge emerged. We needed more space, but Cambridge had more to offer than space. It offered the possibilities to rethink how universities work with cities to make a strength out of the relation between town and gown. In 2001, the building was purchased, the renovations began in January 2004, and the school began operations in Cambridge in September 2004, so 15 years ago. This move would not have been possible without the vision and support of the city as a municipality, and we owe much to the great number of contributors and also key private donors whose support was instrumental to the success of the move. I personally came to Cambridge 12 years ago, joining as the newest faculty member in the top school of architecture in Canada. And when I first visited the school for my interview, I was really enchanted by the fact that it was here in the city, embedded in the community. Having been here for over a decade now, I know that feeling is shared by everyone at the School of Architecture. Not only have many colleagues moved to Cambridge as well as in the region, but more importantly, they all recognize the incredibly important ways in which the relationship between the school and the city has been beneficial. So I think it's fair to say that the school has played a small part, at least in the growth and development of Cambridge, whether that is in promoting the value of design, culture, and architecture broadly, with projects coming in the wake of our move, like the award-winning City Hall, award-winning library projects in Hespeler, and also more recently just by the river here in Galt, as well as the construction of the new theatre, or other projects such as right now the Gaslight District that aims to capitalize on that cultural component. And I think this goes both ways. Your support and the support of many remarkable people have been transformative for all of us at the school in terms of the projects that we take, in terms of the opportunities we can benefit from. For example, this spring we have a studio project that looks at the Grand River, looking at this water string, looking at places where it encounters the city or where it goes on it's on traditional land all along, but looking at the more naturalized sections of that path. We have students involved in community initiatives such as Stop Gap, so they were building and painting ramps to make sure businesses downtown were accessible. We have students organizing workshops for high school students in the region. The school's doors are open to outreach programs, film festivals. This summer we have a Junior Achievement Summer Camp. And beyond our walls, there are events organized by students, so most notably, I guess, the students that are working out of Bridge, which is our storefront on Main Street. And they have been most recently also collaborating with Idea Exchange to run a series of events. The added here, the Common Waters, that looks at the waters. It doesn't only include students in the School of Architecture, but reached out to designers, architects, artists over the broad region to showcase some of that work and come together to think about these waters that we share. There have been regular participation in On Silent Night. A group of students is also currently involved in the curation of a film series at the old post office, so out of the new branch of the library. These are some of the regular ongoing initiatives that just happen because our students see themselves as part of the community and contribute in this capacity. These initiatives are as important, I think, as the larger projects in the downtown redevelopment, from civic and cultural institutions to housing. And all in all, and without a doubt, we can affirm that the school has been, if not a catalyst, then a key element of this profound and positive change in the image of the city. And some of this will also come through some of the projects that they work on, which can then start to inform how we see this place. So back in 1999, part of the plan was to attract more programs to Cambridge, and there has been growth. There has been growth in three main areas, with a new collaborative program in architectural engineering, with the implementation of a design-build collaboration with First Nations communities in the region, as well as growth in graduate studies and research more generally. So architectural engineering is an unparalleled collaboration between a leading school of architecture and a civil and environmental engineering, both which are departments within a school and a department within an exceptionally strong engineering faculty. Architectural engineering students focus on the built environment to consider sustainability and environmental concerns as an essential part of engineering design. The implementation of the program last September is bringing new collaborators to Cambridge from engineering. That also means a 15% growth in our faculty complement because we're providing some of the faculty teaching in that program, and 85 additional students in Cambridge every winter and spring, meaning that we're really operating at full capacity year-round. Architectural engineering students will be here for their third year of study, so 3A and 3B in UW lingo, joining us for the first time in May 2021. And I think this is growth that the school and Cambridge will benefit from. And it's interesting because in some outreach document, I was just looking for some images and I found on this page that was part of the Ontario government, and they were pitching the architectural engineering program and this one-of-a-kind program, a new program, and saying like one of the really highlights of the program is that you get to interact with architecture students, which I thought was an interesting thing when we become the highlight of an engineering program. So for design-build collaboration, it was partly inspired by our location on the side of the Grand River, which, as I mentioned, is part of the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and neutral people. So we're located on the Haldimand Tract, which sits 6 miles on each side of the Grand River, or 10 kilometers on each side, and which was a land promised to the Six Nations. And in an initiative supported by the university, we've been developing design-build partnerships between the School of Architecture and First Nations community in the region. So far we have collaborated with the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and Gayanase, which is an organization of the Six Nations of the Grand River First Nation Reserve, an organization dedicated to preserve and teach traditional Iroquoian cultural heritage. And I think these are important initiatives. And as part of this collaboration, Waterloo architecture students are involved in the design and construction of learning station pavilions for the Six Nations community. Oh, this image doesn't work. Let me go back. Oops. Oh, it blocked. And I think actually it was because there was a video showing students at work on this pavilion. And all of this to say that some of the students are inside the school right now steaming beams so that they can bend the wood, or they were outside in the basketball court building parts of a pavilion, and then there's a container that arrived to store some of the material. There's another container because there's another pavilion that is being built. It's really wonderful, but clearly we need space to scale up our fabrication facilities and ensure that we can continue these exceptional and groundbreaking collaborations. So this work also points to architecture and design's profound engagement with the cultural, social, and political dimensions of our world. As a professional program, we are part of the architectural profession in Ontario, in Canada, and in the world. Architecture is the profession that we prepare our students for, so there's a pre-professional degree, undergraduate students, and a professional master's. But we really do embrace a much broader realm of design research. Design research takes many forms, but it happens perhaps most importantly at the graduate level in collaboration with faculty members that engage in a whole range of activities as architects and artists. An indication of our growth in research is that our graduate student population has grown since we have moved, and it's growing again this year, which means that from about 60 to 75 students, our graduate student population will now consistently be over or well over 100 students. And this is an additional reason for the expansion. We need to house this growth and the research that it fosters. Established, recent, and upcoming faculty members require space to conduct innovative research programs in smart city design, in sustainability, in material ecology, in advanced fabrication, or architectural forensics. We have new partnerships with industry to work with clay and masonry. We want to forge new ones to innovate with the use of robotics and wood, because we have faculty members are doing just that, but now they're flying out to UBC to use their robots to do it. And we'll be welcoming new faculty with research on building systems and material science. We need to support them and accommodate innovative research at the intersection of technology, environment, and culture. And this requires partly a new type of facility and definitely an expansion of our fabrication workshop. All of this to say that we are here tonight not only to give you this update, but also to share with you again that we need to grow in order to keep up with the development since 2004 and to house the projected growth. Over the next few years, we need more space, and we like this space to be in Cambridge. We are here also because this expansion project is important not only for the school and the university, but also for Cambridge. And I hope that you'll also join us as we make it clear that this growth is important to the province and the country. This growth for design here in Cambridge and at Waterloo and now in our contemporary society goes well beyond education. So I'd like to list some of the impacts of the School of Architecture's proposed expansion in Cambridge. I think for one, and these will be roughly around this idea of diversity, the city's visibility and future, as well as municipal growth and economic impact. So for one, the School of Architecture and its programs in architecture and also architectural engineering may actually be key players in advancing gender equity, or more broadly, diversity in the STEM disciplines, so science, technology, engineering, and maths, or STEAM disciplines, where you put arts in there as well. Educating future leaders in tech entrepreneurship, as well as women researchers and design entrepreneurs in the city, this region, and beyond. As the rare engineering programs that attract above 30% annually, we have a responsibility and can make a difference, and we are in the right market to make an impact, in the right place to make an impact. Another element, another impact, I should say, is simply that the expansion can bring more visibility to this city. Year after year, more than 1,000 prospective applicants come to the School of Architecture, visit. They trying to get in one of the 75 spots that are offers that we send out. Waterloo Architecture is a leader in design education, and in continuing to grow the education it offers and strengthening its footings as the epicenter of design education and research, the school not only has an impact on the well-being of our immediate community here, but addresses an incredible range of topics. Over the past few months, 3 of our faculty members, and this is just, I was trying to think about facts or data to show, but I'm just thinking 3 of our faculty members have been talked about in the New York Times, so I just pulled out these articles. But one is the world expert on Holocaust history, putting the largest exhibition in Auschwitz in New York City, so Robert Jan van Pelt. The other is an architect in engineering addressing climate change through amphibious architecture, or houses that floats. And Elizabeth English. And the other is a leader that are at the frontier of art, technology, and culture. His name is Philip Beasley. And these last few years as well, many faculty have been leading exhibitions in prestigious institutions in Ontario and around the world, showing their work in Seoul, in Chicago, and Washington, and the Royal Ontario Museum in Venice. And I think every time someone visits one of these exhibitions, they learn something about Cambridge's commitment to design, creativity, and excellence. They know that the school is located here. The expansion is also an investment in our future. Our school is the #1 destination for architecture in Canada. Our students become innovators willing to face the most important problems of the 21st century. Our students address issues such as urban growth, social justice, technological innovation, gender politics, and material science. They design buildings and urban precincts. They research homeless shelters or look at watersheds. And our ambitions are fueled by their curiosity about the world. Their optimism really underpins our growth. Their creativity is really the engine that drives our school forward, and I think it has the power to transform our cities. I could go on and on and on about our students and the amazing research that our faculty members are engaged in. As I said, from material science to housing in the north, through landscape and the ethical implications of smart cities.